one light that was overhead that they were able to hang. Nothing major, though. But you go on some of these movies, TV shows, and the lighting is just, they can get it everywhere they want. But here they had to be really creative. And it was interesting that the cinematographer said, I didn't trust him because he was lighting the ways that the opposite of way. But I think that's what makes this movie so interesting and visually dynamic is Panos had a look in his head and that's what he wanted to achieve. So this movie was just, they had the choreography, all the fights were filmed in one day, which is gnarly, which is like when you're having a chainsaw fight, you should probably have more than a day, but they didn't have that. And so they just ran around shooting as fast as they could. I don't know. I love it. Like I love, I don't know. The cinematography is excellent in here. They had to be really thrifty, but the uses of red, I mean, his name's Red and the colors of it has tons of red hues, you know, like, and then just the world, I don't know, man, it's just a great LSD trip that was made for next to nothing with very little preparation. And the way it came out, the way it did shows that Panos really knows what he's doing. He knows what he wanted. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Well,
let's talk about him a little bit. So did you happen to listen to the interview with Panos conducted by Eli Roth? Roth. It's from Shudder. He has a TV show on Shudder that's doing the history of horror, but he released the unedited interviews on a podcast, and he talked to Panos. And some things I learned about this guy is that he has extreme high anxiety and stress, and that he made his first movie, Beyond the Black Rainbow, because he was going to turn 40 in a couple years. And he's like, I always thought I was going to be a film director and I had to get a movie out before I was 40 or I basically thought I was a failure. And so he viewed as Beyond the Black Rainbow as his one shot. He got it out and he didn't plan on making another movie. And so when he made Mandy, his expectations were so low. It was kind of crazy to hear him talk about how he just said, like, I was making a movie for me and that was it. Like, I didn't expect it to be good. I just didn't expect people to get it. I just wanted to make another movie. And I had thought that I'd already made my one movie. So this was like living on borrowed time.
Wow. He said that?
Yeah, he didn't say those exact words. I'm paraphrasing a bunch, but those were the sentiments. And what he also said that really Beyond the Black Rainbow and Mandy are sort of a duology a little bit.
Yeah.
So they both take place in 1983. They both have a similar aesthetic and they both deal with sort of loss and they're somewhat experimental. Unfortunately, I haven't seen Beyond the Black Rainbow. I will get to that, but it'd be interesting to do a back-to-back screening and see if I can pick up on those themes.
Just to see that kind of evolution of his filmmaking, because he said he loved making Beyond the Black Rainbow, and he said making Mandy was the most difficult thing he'd ever done.
I can imagine, yeah.
Because, originally he wanted Nick Cage for the Linus Roache role. Mm-hmm. He did not, and then Cage was like, nah, man. He was like, I want to be Red. So then he had to rewrite the script, and he had a dream one night where he watched the movie, and the movie turned out brilliantly. So he kind of thought, okay, I guess I can do that. Because he wanted him to be Jeremiah Sand. But I think the swap worked out better for the movie, because Linus Roache, the amount of sort of villainous man-child that he is able to bring forth is something I don't see Nick Cage offering.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, he would be good with some of the over-top acting, but he doesn't have that sense of vulnerability that Roache has.
And what scares me about Roache is that, and I think this happens in many cases, where this, by himself, right, Jeremiah Sand is not a powerful man, but he has some people with him, like Brother Swan, played by Ned Dennehy, and then Mother Marlene, where they are dedicated to him. They allow him to be the alpha, and anything he wants, that Brother Swan, whose eyes, Ned Dennehy's eyes are just dark as night, he gets done. So he has these capable, sort of deadly people around him that are what make him powerful, but he by himself is a failed musician. It's just a really interesting villain in this film, where he is just very fragile. When he makes a speech to Mandy, and she's loaded up on LSD and a terrible bug bite. Well, I don't even know what that bug was. And she just laughs at him. I love it when he just loses it, and he goes into a thing screaming, keep it together. And he's like, you will never allow that to happen again. I don't know. I think he's a very fragile man who's enabled by people who are legitimately terrible.
There was an article, maybe it was in Vulture, about how Mandy talks about male masculinity.
Oh yeah, I sent that to you. Yeah,
you did. That's right.
Yeah,
you sent that to me. And that scene is the scene that they really highlight, talking about how Jeremiah is an example of just the frail masculine ego, and Mandy's laughing at him really sets this entire thing in motion.
God told me I could do what I want. So I have that entire speech written down where he monologues, and he did that twice. So those are two scenes, and then he was becoming one with Mandy in that, which was pretty gnarly, which I love.
Yeah.
And so here, let me find this speech here. He talked to me, addressed me as a friend. They were wrong and you are right. So right, he blessed me with his holy kiss. You are not separate. All that is yours. He gave me his deepest and warmest permission to take what is mine. All of it. Mine. My wants, my needs, my pleasures. And then he looks at her and he's like, be gentle. And she just laughs in his face.
Because it's so absurd. Dude. It's such an absurd statement. Like the ego you have to think that you can do whatever you want and that the world exists to please you is insane. And they do a good job, showing him being insane.
He's laying on the bed. And I just love I laughed during this scene too, where Mother Marlene is like, what can I do with you? He's like, nothing. He's like, everything you do is wrong. He's like, obviously, like, you don't know what you're doing. And she's like, oh my God, like she just is heartbroken. And then he brings in Brother Swan, and everything that he says, Brother Swan's like, I got it. I can do it. Yep. That's perfect. Great plan, boss. And they're like, get rid of the porker. And he's like, oh yeah, he couldn't find his nose if he looked in a mirror. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, they do a great job showing that he's actually very weak and that he's propped up by other people.
Yeah, it's just, but I think that's a really neat concept. And I know your thoughts about that movie Joker, but at the end when he legitimately has a mental break and he shoots De Niro, these people sort of use him to riot and cause chaos. And they kind of, they use him to do terrible things. And I thought that was a pretty interesting parallel between them. But I don't know. And also, there are some very fantasy paranormal elements in this film, but there's also a ton of drugs, a face melting amount of drugs in this movie. So where do you fall? I mean, where this horn of Abraxas is used to call the biker gang. So what is this horn of Abraxas? What do you think? This is a world with some mysticism, but it's also enshrouded in a haze of drugs that's kind of unreliable.
Yeah, that's really interesting because there are multiple relics that the yuppie Christian cult gang have. So there's the tainted blade, which I don't quite get, and then the horn of Abraxas. And I researched the horn of Abraxas, and the background of it is incredibly convoluted. But I was like, I can't even get through this. But
I found one cool thing. Do you mind me reading it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so the horn is clearly phallic and completely in line with an interpretation of Abraxas as a demigod, at least partially responsible for the creation of everything. There's also a fair amount of research about the existence of reality as constructed under the rule of Abraxas. Clearly, blowing the horn is a way to call into existence Abraxas and his minions and all the realities in which he exists. We also associate Abraxas with snakes and serpents. If we pay careful attention to the beginning of the movie, we are treated to the titular Mandy reading the eye of the serpent, a clear reference to the importance of serpents in demon lore, generally and Abraxas specifically. The Gnostics believe Abraxas had two serpents as legs, and often drew images of him having reptilian features. As things go from kind of strange to completely bonkers, we are introduced to the demons, bikers. These are the Hell's Angels, are clearly servants of Abraxas by the way of Jeremiah Sands, who might just be Abraxas. Shortly after defeating the demon bikers, but before confronting Sands and company, Cage visits a tiger-keeping, drug-making guru who shows Cage the darkness around him by way of hundreds of large black centipedes. These could easily be considered serpents for our purposes. It's pretty, I don't know, that of all the things I read, that made some sense to me.
Yes.
But see, the thing is, I don't see Jeremiah Sand as Abraxas. And I don't even think he's not a Christian. He just found a way to make power, and he knew that if he used Christianity, he could bring a following. So he's just a guy that if he could be a vacuum salesman and get the same cult, he would do it. Do you think so?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it's just look at all that has been provided to me. It's just I want. And I don't know, maybe like look at people in this world who just want. They take. I mean, some of these people do build massive followings. So this character is not too far out of left field. But the fact that he has a horn of Abraxas raises good questions for me. These are not Aquaman level questions. I'm like, well, I was like, did they just punch a hole through the Earth's core with a 2.5 kilometer sea beast? These are questions that are worth exploring and pondering.
Yeah. So I guess what's going on in my head is that I don't think Jeremiah Sand is Abraxas. I think Abraxas is a separate entity, and that Jeremiah Sand was able to tap into that entity and use the biker gangs by sacrificing his men and giving, I guess, some type of drug. I guess we're gonna say it's some goop acid, but it shows sort of the, I guess what you would call it, hypocriticism. He shows that Sand is a hypocrite because he's saying he's one with God, but then he's utilizing demons from another god.
I guess he's taking it as I can do whatever I want. This demon is part of this world, so it's mine.
Yes, everything is his. Yeah.
You know when I realized that his henchmen were next level is when the demons came and they just got out of their cars and the really huge muscular guy just goes up behind him. So there's some tension around these demon bikers, but they're not too afraid of, like, there's obvious hesitation because they have nails in their heads and arms and they're dripping goop. And one of them rides an ATV, which I hate. They should be a motorcycle gang.
Not Electric Razor?
Yeah, it's just like, come on. I think they had to have that ATV for Nick Cage to ride later because of his leg.
Oh, that makes sense.
I don't know if they could have put him on a bike, but I'm like, why would a demon biker ride an ATV? Like, that's stupid. But I like that they just were there. And I don't even know why they called forth the demon gang, because they could have just gone into that house and taken her.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wasn't sure why they did that either, because there was clearly more of them to be able to do it. Other than thinking they knew it was going to happen. Like, it was a certainty that the biker game would get it done, and that if the Christian crew, maybe it could go sideways.
And so this biker gang, now obviously they melted their brains with acid and they're in constant pain, which they love. However, these bikers, one of them takes an arrow directly through the neck and just pulls it out. Now I've never done acid, and I've never done a face melting amount of acid, so I'm no pro here. But if that thing goes through your neck, it's going to hit veins. You're going to bleed out. They have the equal amount of blood. So these things were not regular humans anymore. Would you say?
I think that's what the movie implies. But again, as you mentioned earlier, you can interpret this movie a lot of different ways. You can interpret it as Jacob's Ladder scenario, that Red actually died. These monsters, these people are normal people who are just sort of screwed up in the head, or you can interpret them as actually being monsters.
And I have another question. So in the beginning when he's chained up and the thing says to him, you have a death wish, he knocks that creature into this pit, a random pit in this movie. Does that thing crawl its way out and take the shot at him with the gun later on? Yeah,
that is Sis, I believe. That's a woman.
Oh, Sis. Got it.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, because like the 4 bikers in the biker game, and I think they're called the let's make sure I get the Black Skulls.
Angels. Yeah, Black Skulls. Yeah.
That it is difficult to know who is who, and even on IMDb, I'm not quite sure like which one is which, other than the one that's called F Pig. Pretty sure we know which one that one is.
The big guy.
Yeah. But I looked at IMDb and I cross-referenced it with another website, and I think the one who fell in the hole is Sis, the single female in the group who came back up and got her neck snapped.
Just like butter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But there's also, like, I think my favorite line in the movie is, you ripped my shirt!
Yeah. I was reading this article about the making of this. If you look up American cinematographer and there's a, like, 15-minute read about this. But I love this line when talking about that. Red kills his captors, snorts their cocaine, eats their acid, retrieves his axe, and escapes into the night. I love that. That's such a cool sentence right there. And I like how they filmed. They didn't have much money, so they lit that car on fire. And I don't know if you noticed it, but they laid dolly track in a U shape, and then they set up 2 cameras, one on a dolly and then just another one. and then they just sort of move the dollies around to get the fight. I don't know if you noticed that cinematography for that. But